Hello driving intelligence community. As you can see from the lead into this video, I converted my extended cab F150 from a 60/40 bench seat setup to a truck that has 2 bucket seats now and a center console. I've been getting some questions about how to do that. The questions primarily came from my video that shows how I customize the center console on that truck after I installed the center console. So in this video, I'm going to tell you which vehicles work, and then we'll go into the specifics of how it gets installed. Alright, so starting from the top, if you want to put a center console that looks like the one in my video into your F-150, you need a center console from a 97th row to Expedition or a console from a 98 to 02 Navigator. Those actually will bolt right in. In general, this modification will work on all F-150s from 1997 through 2003, plus the 2004 Heritage Edition F-150, which is really still a 10th generation F-150. The holes are in there. In the case of my F-150, I had to tap 2 of them, but the holes were underneath the carpet, and so it bolts right up, no problem. I actually have 2 F-150s, so I didn't feel really concerned about doing this, because the other one, which is a crew cab, already had one of these long Expedition style center consoles in it. It's a Harley Davidson F150. So you won't have to be worried about it. It works for standard cab, extended cab, and super cruise. The kind of parts that you're going to need, there's 2 brackets on the floor, and you're going to need the bolts that go with those brackets. So when you take the center console, make sure you get the brackets that are bolted to the floor. There are only 4 bolts that hold that console in place. I'll show you later, 1 on each side in the back, and then 2 underneath the tray at the top of the console. Some of these consoles came with different things in them, like for example CD players. The Navigators came with potentially a navigation system, which was disc driven, and also came with one of them I pulled had a Motorola mobile phone setup in it, which really packed that big cavernous center console up. But you can find those. That takes a lot of extra wiring to put those in, so if you're really electrically inclined, you might want to try that. Otherwise, go with what I did and just get a standard console. That'll work fine. Also, some of them, for the Expeditions and others, they'll have climate control that was actually integrated into that center console. So you want to look and pick and choose which ones you want. They're in various conditions because of the age of them, so if you find one, maybe the lid is not in such good shape, but I found that on eBay you can find the skin for that lid very low cost. I think less than $20 delivered to replace that skin, so it's not such a big challenge if you do have damage on the armrest portion. I think that's all I want to look at now. I'm going to actually link up above here, you'll see, and link at the end where I customized the center console. I included USB ports. I included a voltage gauge, since our voltage gauge is just a dummy gauge on F-150s, and also an auxiliary switch which turns on my electric fan, and you'll see information about my electric fan kit, not mine, but one I installed on my F-150 to improve performance and fuel economy, which actually paid some dividends when I did install that. So now let's get into the specifics of the installation. There is one more thing I need to tell you about. So I mentioned I had a 60/40 seat in this truck, and unfortunately mine had the integrated seat belts. So the seat belts weren't attached to the cab, they're actually in the seat themselves. Well, the 60% side, to find a replacement for that was very difficult, but I happened to be going through a wrecking yard and saw an F-150 with a bucket seat that had the integrated seat belt. Now I think that's the rare condition. If you have one of those with the bucket seats like that with the integrated seat belts, you might have a little more trouble finding that. Otherwise, if you want to go with bucket seats that don't have the integrated seat belts, they're plentiful out there, and you can use the Expedition seats and Navigator seats. They should all bolt up from the years I've already mentioned. But you also should pay close attention to the bolting of the seats on the floor for your F-150, because some of the bolting I found on the passenger side is slightly different. So take some photos of it, get a good view of what the bolting strategy is for that seat, and make sure that when you go to the yard, you're going to get something that matches up, because that 60% seat on those F-150s was different from year to year, if I recall from my research when I was out in the wrecking yards looking at those different seats. One last thing to mention, since I forgot a couple things already at the beginning of the video, some of these seats in the Navigator, or actually I think it's in the Expeditions, the early ones had the armrests integrated into the seat, and therefore you had a narrow top console. So unless that bothers you, what you're going to want to look for is the wide top console in Expeditions that don't have the integrated armrest. I'm not sure whether or not the Navigators had that, but in any case, just pay close attention to the seats that you're going to put in your F-150. If you're going to get the integrated armrest, get the narrow top console. It won't work otherwise. Or the narrow top console will work with any F-150 seat combination, but it's not as nice as having that big wide armrest that goes with the wide top consoles. Now let's get into it. Removal and installation of this console is really pretty easy. First you have to take this tray out, and this tray is held in by two screws. One screw right here and another screw right there. They're both Torx head, you can see it. Once those are removed, then this unsnaps out of the main part of the console, and it'll expose underneath there, about in this location, two additional bolts or screws that go into the mounting bracket, the front mounting bracket that's mounted to the floor. At the back of the console, there are two more bolts, you'll see, one on each side. You'll just pull those out, and at that point, you'll lift the back of the console and slide it toward the back of the vehicle. You'll have to slide it back because it engages by sliding forward into the front bracket. Shown here is the 60-40 seat arrangement that I had in my truck. You may have the 60-40, or you also may have two bucket seats with a different type of center console that's already bolted to the floor. Here you see some brand new mounting brackets, the first being the rear bracket, the second being the front bracket. Those will need to be installed, and what I found the easiest thing to do was to actually pull the carpet up. So you'll have to take a lot of your interior out to do this, maybe not just the passenger seat, but take the interior out so that you can pull the carpet up and expose those bolt locations, so it makes it much easier for you to install the brackets. But to do that, you're going to have to cut holes in the carpet as I'm showing here. Now the bolting locations to the floor are about 17.5 inches apart to give you some idea of the spacing you need. As I mentioned earlier, some of you may need to tap the holes. I found that only the front holes needed to be tapped on the front bracket. The rear holes were already threaded. So you just need to get a tapping tool, and it's pretty easy to do that, so not a big problem. Depending on the condition of your console, you may need to do some painting. I decided not only to paint it, but to add some accent to it. So I removed the center tray, which was in the worst condition, cleaned it up, degreased it, used some adhesion promoter, and I painted it. I put a black accent on it by taping it off very carefully. You can see that turns out pretty nice. I also mentioned earlier that I customized the center console to add some additional functionality like double USB ports, a voltage gauge, and an on-off switch for the electric fan kit. You can do that at the same time or later. I did mine at two different phases because you can obviously see that I had a different tray section in there than what I currently have. Some additional items I didn't mention earlier were the cup holders. There's some rubber inserts into the trays. You'll want to get those when you go to the junkyard. If they don't exist, then you can see here that there are different part numbers that you can order from Ford if they're still available. The rest of this video is going to show you with some music what some other consoles look like. For example, my Navigator console that I actually sold, but some ideas on what some other people have done customizing their interiors of their F-150s, and they look pretty nice. Good luck, thanks for watching, and see you next time on Driving Intelligence.